Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live, and I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call is 469 307 1642 1642. Well, still United Kingdom is our number one audience, followed by USA, India, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Canada, Thailand, Japan, Ukraine, China, Korea, Brazil, and Iraq. Now, by now, you all know what the routine is. If you haven't heard your country's name, just shoot us an email. We will put you in that list. Global Radio and TV Live is well known for conspiracy theory topics and controversial ideas. Well, as a scientist, we need scientific proof, and we have very interesting scientific topic today. We discussed here all different types of subject matters, including the existence of God. In some people's mind, that's controversial, and aliens, and many other topics, all controversial, conspiracy theories, extreme skeptics, and firm believers. Well, today is a nice departure from controversy. Instead, we are going to talk about autism. Today, our featured guest is Jacqueline Williams-Hines, who is an expert on autism, who has had personal experience with the serious problem of this in children. Jacqueline, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent, very good. So, where are you calling us from today?
I'm calling from Massachusetts
Well,
in
how
the
is the
United States.
Yeah, I know. Well, our audience does not know how much snow do you have there.
Actually, we just got a spring snowstorm of 2 inches, but we're just starting to melt out. We had quite a few feet, so looking forward to spring.
Well, really, see, many of our audience haven't even seen snow or felt it. The only time that they actually see snow is when they go to some kind of a ice skating ring or someplace, and they have to produce it artificially. You know, they were all willing to come to Massachusetts and enjoy the snow. Well, you guys are completely tired of it. uh,
Yes, I'm sure Boston would have loved to been able to send them some.
Send them some, yeah. I was watching the other day on CNN. The CNN reporter was standing there, and I believe that the snow was about twice as much as that person's height. So
Yes,
almost 10, 12
we
feet.
didn't get hit as bad as Boston, but yeah, we were pretty inundated for quite a while, so it's nice to finally see a thaw coming.
Oh, wonderful. And I used to live up in upstate New York. Very similar situation. We used to have the lake effect. Snow come in Albany, New York. You must be very familiar.
Yes, yes.
And I was there for about 18 winters. I was just awful. Well,
Oh, so you're seasoned.
well, I am seasoned. Now, right now we are in Texas. I mean, the broadcast is out of Texas. Even
Okay.
here, it is for the last few months. It's been pretty cold, but I'm not complaining. All right. So, Jacqueline, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Autism. Uh, Tell our audience exactly what is autism.
Well, autism is a developmental disorder, and it's usually detected between the ages of 2 and 3. Parents start to notice developmental delays in their children, such as not speaking, maybe not meeting eye contact, not being able to really socially interact with others, and just having a lot of delays. So it's so prevalent that it's really important that as communities we are able to help recognize those signs when we do see delays.
Okay. So, this comes as early as 2 years old when you are seeing some developmental disabilities, including not having eye contact, not smiling.
Right.
I was reading through your books and other interviews you had at the age 4 months. Tell our audience exactly, different aspects or different time periods. What the parents should expect the child to do?
Yes, and I would like to encourage parents. A wonderful tool that you can access would be the CDC's Birth to Five initiative. They have a checklist that really gives you developmental milestones that should be happening normally from 2 months all the way to their fifth birthday. So I can quickly give you a few. For 2 month olds, the child should be beginning to smile at people and start to briefly be able to calm himself and look to their parents for recognition, and that's as early as 2 months. We can skip ahead to 4 months, and the child should be smiling spontaneously. So they're not just, mimicking, you're actually seeing an emotional connection with others. They might want to play with people and cry to get attention. And crying is a definite form of communication. Children as early as 4 months understand that if I cry, then mommy will come. And we may not see that in children on the autism spectrum. I'd like to skip ahead to 6 months and knowing familiar faces and beginning to know when someone is a stranger. So you see as early as 6 months that facial recognition that starts to happen. They start to be able to differentiate between mommy's face and daddy's face, and kind of differentiating between faces that are unfamiliar to them. At 9 months, they may become afraid or aware of strangers. So there is that awareness that starts to come about their social surroundings and who's not familiar and who is familiar. At one, they may start to become nervous around strangers. They may start to respond to spoken words. You will start to see them, responding more to their names being called, looking toward the parents for recognition and engagement. They start to explore things around them. So you start to see them mouthing and putting things in their mouths and really starting to explore objects outside of their world. Um, they start to go to other people for help and starting to engage them. And you may have them pulling mommy's hand to kind of get a juice or a bottle to get things that they want. And those are the social milestones that we really want to start seeing. Um, what usually happens around the 18-month mark, you start to see verbal social interaction. So that's when I think it becomes apparent for a lot of parents when they're not hearing a lot of that verbal interaction that kind of becomes their first red flag. And they may want to start handing things to others, playing with them, having temper tantrums. We always hear about the terrible twos, but that is such a huge milestone when your child understands that power, that if I behave in a certain way, then things happen around me. People will come, people will soothe me, people may try to placate me with things that I want. So they start to understand the power in communication. And with children on the spectrum, you may not see that. You may see that behavior, but not in that context. So it may seem really strange when we often hear parents refer to children having meltdowns, and not understanding why they're having meltdowns, because it may not be in that context of, well, I know he wanted more candy and I didn't give it to him, so he had a meltdown. It may seem to almost come out of nowhere, and they may have difficulty being soothed. So parents are usually at odds as to how to deal with these behaviors. And those are some of the really huge red flags that we start to see around that 18-month mark. They may want to start doing things on their own, becoming more independent. And
So
I
in a
think for me,
so in an
just
autistic
remembering that
yeah
that
in, a,
age.
in an autistic child, you are saying that all these various milestones that you talked about, they will be
Right.
absent or only partially present, and many things they will not be doing like what a normal child would be doing in those age periods.
Right. And another thing that you may actually see is your child may start meeting those diagnostic milestones normally and then have regression.
I
So we
see.
have parents will say, well, my child was actually talking and interacting with the family, and then he started to lose words. Huge, huge red flag when you have a child who stopped saying things that were in their repertoire. We've had children who will regress back to being totally nonverbal and become less social. So we hear parents saying, well, he just wants to be alone. He doesn't want to play with others. But if he had that skill set prior to this regression, that is a very, very big red flag.
So this regression happens even to those child that early on showed normal growth and development, but later on went back into a negative type scenario where they are not showing the same behavior. So that is one indication of autism.
Right. And the thing that I need to stress is because it is a spectrum disorder, We see it in varying degrees. We see it in different manifestations. So you may have a child who may not be progressing normally, and that is a cue to definitely consult your pediatrician. Or you may have that instance where the child was developing normally and began to regress.
All right, now
So,
here is a question. We were talking about young children, between the age of 6 months to, going to preschool, and that's
right.
when you are able to decide whether the child, able to diagnose, or, at the very early age, figure out whether the child has autism or not. Now, during that time period between birth and going to, first grade, these kids are getting 36 different vaccines. Now, there has been some kind of relationship that was shown. I do not know whether it is real science or junk science. Do you think that there is any kind of connection between vaccines that is being
Uh,
used in such high proportion nowadays versus
right.
autism?
Because I'm not a scientist and I haven't seen the data reflecting that. And of course, it's still being refuted in the medical community. And of course, there are parents who are very concerned and believe very strongly that this is a contributor. My personal feelings are that I believe that there are several contributors. I think that it's almost like a tumbler's in a lock for certain populations. I think that there may be contributors that may be environmental. There's definitely, I believe, biological contributors that may be, different gene mutations that may be making certain populations more susceptible. I think because there's you start to see those milestones around the time that those inoculations take place, that people really do form that opinion. However, as not having that data to back me up, I could not say definitely that,
That is
you
very
know,
true, because I was studying some of those results myself. The number of people getting vaccines are so enormous, millions and millions of people. And then you compare that against the number of autistic children. Um, you are right. There may be some environmental factor. Perhaps the vaccine have some role to play. Maybe not. But the science does not really support it. But I'm glad that you said that. Don't stop giving polio vaccine to your children because he or she is going to get autism. That brings an important question. I said he or she. What is
hmm
the prevalence of autism in young boys versus young girls?
in boys, it's actually 5 to 1 almost.
Five to
The
one.
current statistics now are 1 in 68, but 1 in 44 for boys.
So it is pretty high. So what is the reason behind boys having more autistic syndromes than girls?
I'm again, I don't have the data to support that. I just know that that is what the rates are reflecting. I can say that from the diagnostic rates, we're seeing more severe autism in the females. But the data is just not there to bear it out. So I would not want to be premature in saying that I know what's causing it. A big concern for me in the African American community in the United States is that um, we're getting diagnosed almost 18 months behind our counterparts. So if you're getting a diagnosis around, say, between 2 and 3, and you're getting early interventive services, um, we're missing that a lot of times. Our children are going into preschool without those services, without that support. So it's really important for me to really educate our community and look at some of the cultural influences that may be inhibiting us from really actively advocating for a diagnosis.
Now, what is okay? You brought up an important point. What is the what cultural phenomenon that will, notwithstanding that the 18 months delay of having the children diagnosed in the African American
I,
community, what is the cultural phenomenon that makes it this delay? Is it because the parents are not aware, or are they not going to take the children to the doctors early on, or are figuring out what's going on?
I think there's definitely an educational piece that needs to be presented to the parents. I think there is, an ignorance when it comes to, and I don't say that in a way of being stupid, it's just ignorance of not knowing what milestones should be looked at. But I think there's also a disconnect often between the African American community and the medical community. When we're going in and bringing our children into the pediatrician, I think that sometimes the way we convey information to our pediatricians are not really, it's not really giving the doctor a good enough picture or a full enough picture to be able to really make a clear diagnosis. So, and sometimes I think that, when you have populations that may be suffering from poverty, educational disparities, they may just defer to the physician and not really want to talk about it. But a huge piece is from a cultural standpoint, often there is this resistance to want to look at anything that looks like an intellectual disability in the community. So there's a huge, huge issue with just accepting the diagnosis and then being able to advocate for the services. So for me, it's definitely a huge undertaking for me to try to do more education in that community and activate and empower parents to want to get an early diagnosis, as opposed to thinking that it's something that maybe is just something in the family. Maybe it's, maybe the child's just quiet and they'll grow out of it. Education is huge and it's very empowering.
One of the parents who had a child with autism who happens to be a doctor, he said that autism is a neurological disorder. It is not caused by bad parenting. Okay, so do you agree with that?
Exactly. And I think because you often have communities who suffer under a lot of stigma. You may be feeling stigmatized or marginalized because of your socioeconomic status or your cultural beliefs. Um, there's a lot of stigma and that's carried in the African American community. So, we have this saying in our community that we don't often go to, especially psychologists. We take it to God, we take it to church, and it's really important for us to know as a community that God brought, physicians and psychologists there to help us. He gave them that knowledge and that desire to pursue their desired profession to help us. So it's okay to admit that your child may not be acting
Yes.
appropriately. Another huge point I would just like to make is that in the African American community, it's been really important for us historically to be able to conform to social norms when we're in the public. Our very life has depended on that.
Yes.
So when you have a child who doesn't read social cues and who may not act appropriately in the community, the parents often experience a lot of shame. They think that people will judge them on their parenting skills, so they self isolate themselves. And they just kind of, try to wait it out and think that if I parent stronger, love harder, and just keep it within the home, that this child will grow out of it. And sadly, that's not the case.
You brought up a very interesting point. Um, you have a son, correct? Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, now,
Okay, you have a son,
yes,
and you in one of your earlier interviews, I realized that he was autistic.
yes.
Now, the question that came to my mind as I was watching through the other interview, this little boy, who is now 18 years old, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you see, having a little boy with autism, you have gone through the trials, taking him into public and he perhaps not behaving correctly, and you
Hmm.
were worried that people around you in the supermarket or wherever you took him are judging you and passing a judgment that you are not a great parent. Look at how she's raised this little boy.
Yes.
Now, this is, I believe, is compounded to multiple degrees when this little boy becomes a teenager. The hormones kick in. Now, what happens? Now, this you have a potentially sexually mature man or a
Hmm.
boy to man, and he is in public. Now, dealing with the teenager itself is hard enough. Now, dealing with an autistic teenager, a boy to man, how hard was that?
That's a concern that I had I think with both of my sons. With, actually I have three sons. I have an older son through marriage, and I have a 26-year-old. So it was really important for me to, I think, give them the female perspective on relationships. Their dad, of course, had the important talk, but I also talked to them about being a gentleman and being able to be respectful. And I didn't do any less with Joshua than I did with my older sons. But it had to be broken down into much smaller, um, I guess, much smaller pieces of information for him, and really talking about social cues and how his body language, how his facial expressions and vocal intonations, how that may relate in communicating to people outside of himself, especially young ladies.
Yeah,
Um,
good point. Okay,
so it was
so
really important for me, for him. And one thing that I think I stress really strongly, especially when we look at school systems, um, a lot of times because of the sheer numbers of children entering the school system, we have a lot of what they're calling inclusion classrooms. So we have our children in classrooms with their neurotypical peers. But for me, I always say it's not successful inclusion unless their peers understand what they're seeing. So I think being as teenagers, they all want to just fit in and be understood. And so for me to be able to talk to his peers and kind of give them some insight, um, it made him much more successful because they didn't shy away when he did something that was a little quirky. But it's been a lot of communication with not only him, but his community.
now is this month March is Autism Awareness Month?
April
April.
is Autism Awareness Month.
Okay,
Yes.
coming up. Okay, yeah, let's get back to this other scenario. So, how did you teach? Because there are a lot of children or teenagers,
Hmm.
and they are entering the teenage period. The teenage period itself is very awkward for boys and girls.
Yes.
And with autism, what is that? If it is an extreme, in the spectrum of autism, if it is extreme, I guess it's going to be very difficult to deal with that. Whereas
Yes.
on the, it is a mild autism, I think it's probably much more easier to deal with it.
Yes.
Is it correct?
Um, yes, I think every degree of autism has its own separate challenges. Joshua was diagnosed initially with PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And that is a milder form of autism. However, he did suffer social deficits. He wasn't able to read a lot of social cues, so he was very awkward, and he had a hard time communicating with his peers. So building relationships was kind of difficult. Um, I just took every opportunity I could to reach out to his peers. I actually went into his middle school and taught a class on basic autism, and we did some exercises through drama about teaching them about, their own social cues that they send out into the world. And the funny thing about it was once we got past talking about autism, I discovered that all the children had the same concerns, whether, diagnosis aside, they all wanted to be friends. They wanted to have friends and have relationships. They all worried about being seen as different, bullying. Um, so a lot of the concerns that I had as a mom were really faced across the spectrum, across his neurotypical peers as well.
So, another very interesting point you brought up. Bullying is a serious problem, especially in
Yes.
middle school and high school. And then when you go to college, it it slowly disappears. For regular folks, for regular boys and girls, bullying is tough problem. Now, for a child with autism, I think it doubles the problem all around. Plus, especially the other kids have no clue why this boy or girl is behaving the way they are behaving. So, what is your suggestion? Do you go and talk to the principal, talk to the teachers, and how do you protect a child with autism in such circumstances?
Right. Again, I've been very fortunate and extremely blessed to have Joshua enrolled in a public school for the arts that really celebrates diversity, whether it's racial, sexual preference, different abilities, physical and intellectual. So we were really embraced. And I took the opportunity to go in and speak to his teacher initially in his first year. I wanted to see his environment. And I really expressed a lot of concern that he have a full high school experience. I didn't want his experience to be just that classroom. So we started talking about how do we get him included in the other classes? And then, I wanted to go beyond that. How do we get him into social activities where he could be with his peers and start to develop relationships? And it was just taking it one step at a time. I'm constantly asking Joshua if he's being bullied, if he feels intimidated, and he says no. And I think sometimes as parents, we kind of have to pick and choose our battles. I was definitely a self-professed playground policeman. Um, I was always scanning the crowd, looking at other children's body language, trying to see if they were threatening or, being cruel to him. And sometimes a lot of it went over his head. So I had to really start to weigh it out and say, well, you know what? If he doesn't feel bullied, um, I have to kind of let that go. And
Interesting.
it gave him that opportunity to have his own
See,
relationships.
interesting because I was dropping my son off. He was 12 years old at the time. I think 10 years old. And there was somebody on the curbside. They will open the car door and say good morning, and then the child gets off because I was dropping him off at the school. And I noticed that somebody was bullying him. Not exactly bullying. Well, in my opinion, he was bullying him as he was walking into the class. So I made a big deal out of it. I called the principal. I did everything I could. Then finally they asked my son, what's the story here? He said, my father is making a big deal out of this.
I get it. Yes.
Okay. Then after that, I asked my son, so you didn't feel that you were bullied? I was watching this. That guy was shouting, yeah, these guys are over enthusiastic. And they just
Yes.
woke up in the morning and they have adrenaline running through their blood and they're doing all this stuff. But anyway, the principal called and then said that, well, we will watch over it. Eventually, they got rid of those guys who were a little bit more active than what they should be. So that's very interesting because your son said exactly like what my son said, that he didn't feel that he's getting bullied. So I dropped it and then I still continue to watch it like the way you probably would do to your
Oh,
son.
yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, now there is something else I found which I thought was very interesting. The extreme autism is a serious problem. That perhaps when you get to that extreme, may not be even able to conduct a normal life. If they are not able to conduct a normal life, not being able to go to school, and because they are so extreme, and they also have a tardive dyskinesia. In other words, their speech is slurred or they talk differently, and then they have jerky movements and facial contortions and everything else. When they have that much extreme problem, what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, I'm actually a graduate student right now. I'm studying a master's in autism and excuse me, education in autism, and hoping to be able to sit for the boards in the fall to become a board certified behavior analyst. I am very huge on therapeutic interventions, but I think that as parents, we have to kind of define what is normal for us. What's normal for my child may not be the so called quote unquote normal for your child. And because it's such a spectrum when it comes to their abilities, I say definitely really look at your child as an individual, look at their strengths. Even though a child may not be verbal, there are so many other ways for them to be able to communicate, whether it's through PEX boards, whether there are, through any other type of communication device. Really look at your options and look at your child as an individual. I think it's hard for us as parents. We often use other children as a yardstick or a measuring device of what is quote unquote unnormal. And that was really when I came upon this anthem that I use, and it's the name of my book series and my company, No Small Victories, because every child should be celebrated and every accomplishment should be celebrated. So there's so many things that you can do to help your child live as full a life as possible, But we as parents really have to start looking to our children as individuals.
Well, very interesting point. Coming back to the mild spectrum, on the spectrum, mild end of it, I was told Albert Einstein was slightly autistic, and a lot of other people who are excelled in music, science, and art. Also,
Yes.
all of them had a degree of autism. Is it true?
When I look at these people now and I look at certain celebrities, I really question it. I start to see kind of some of the characteristics. And I think that's what actually makes them great because these people were able to tap into their passion and what really interests them. One of the trademarks or signs of autism is that person may have a very narrow field of interest. And, we often get really frustrated as parents because maybe that child only wants to talk about dinosaurs. Um, Maybe he'll be an expert in paleontology. We really have to start looking to their strengths and stop looking at it as a deficit. My son loves dance, and this is a child who at the time loved Disney movies and the Pixar movies, and could see a movie once and recite back the dialogue verbatim and do all the characters and draw the scenes. And this is a child that taught himself how to tap dance watching Happy Feet.
Really?
Was able to watch that cartoon and isolate those movements and taught himself this whole routine. Had never taken a tap dance lesson.
Is he
Now,
doing a good tap dance?
now he's kind of moved on from tap dance. He loves all the step up movies, and he started going into the hip hop street dance mode. And now he is a dancer on his school's high school dance team. So
Does he have friends?
whatever. I'm sorry.
Does he have friends?
Yes, it's so funny because one of his teachers actually was leaving the school and wrote him a letter saying how much he inspired her and how many times the teachers, and not just his teachers, the mainstream teachers and the principals, were emotionally moved to see him on stage dancing. And for me to see him coming through the crowd and the other students are giving him high five or asking him if he's performing in a performance that's coming up, I never dreamed that I would see that day. Never even fathomed that that would be a passion that would lead to him having friends and relationships. So um, it's still difficult sometimes because there are those issues with him reading social cues when he's out and about. So he doesn't have, I would say, perhaps what people would see as the normal you know, um, mode of friends being an 18-year-old, but he definitely has relationships outside of his family, and that's something that I never even hoped for.
Oh, okay. So that means, um, should I give credit to your parenting or should I give credit to your therapy?
I give credit to Joshua.
Okay.
He has the heart of a lion. He whatever he wanted to do, he set his mind to it. Academics has been kind of difficult for him, and being in school myself, I haven't had as much time to really support him academically as I used to. We would do a lot of studying together, and I would do a lot of coaching. But, miraculously, when I kind of cut those ties and kind of let him stand on his own, he found a strength. And while he's not on the honor roll, he's holding his own and he's in, regular courses. He's taking Algebra 2 and history. And these are things that I never thought would happen. He has problems with a lot of the standardized tests that are required for graduation, but we're going to work around that. And he's determined that he's going to go to college. So I give credit to him because without his heart and the tenacity that he has, I don't know that I would have had the energy or the strength to keep pushing if he had just said, Mom, this is too difficult.
Okay. One of the criticism that is leveled upon doctors, parents, and school authorities is each and every kid walking into the school is either classified as having autism, Asperger's syndrome, hyperactive disorder, developmentally disabled. you probably what happened today is 90% of the kids will fall into one of these categories, even
Yes.
though they're, now what about 50 years ago? They didn't have any of this. So what is going on?
You know, that's a question that I pose to myself all the time. It keeps me up a lot because we're seeing the numbers, just exponentially growing every year. And the schools are just being, they're so ill-equipped to handle it just because of the sheer numbers coming in. We don't have enough educators who are familiar with the diagnosis, or and they're educators, and we get that they're not therapists, so they can't do a lot of the therapeutic supports that our children need in the classroom. um, it's a horrible situation because I think everybody genuinely is trying to do the best they can, but it's almost like trying to you know like they say, uh, I guess, bail out a sinking ship with a teacup. Just the sheer numbers coming in is so overwhelming. But I think that you have to build a strong team, and that means your educational team, your advocacy team if you need one, and as a parent, educate yourself as much as possible and know that you are a crucial team member. I think that parents that think they have to defer to their educators or their therapists or their medical community and relinquish that power. I've seen some phenomenal parents come out of this and are doing things that they never thought that they were going to be able to do. So I think that collaboration has to be there. We have to understand that we're all at the table to support that child. And if that person is not at the table to support their child, then you find the supports to get that person on board. Um, it's a lot of work. It's a huge amount of work to undertake, but
You have to do it,
the child's success depends on it.
right? Now let's get back to your series of books, No Small Victories.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how many books or how many series have you published so far?
I actually have four children's books in the series.
Do you have those
And
books with you?
yes,
Can
just a
you show
second,
it
I
to our
have them
audience?
with me.
What do you have? And
Okay. I have four children's books, and I actually completed a discussion guide to accompany the books because I really wanted to generate some dialogue in with their peers. I would say the book series is geared more to about the third grade level. Even though we've read them to other children, we want them to be able to kind of understand the content. They are in children's format, so they're picture books, so they're bright, they're colorful.
can you show
The first
show
book,
show them? Yeah, show. Yeah, there it is.
the first book is
All right, Joshua.
Joshua and the
Okay,
Star Tabulous Dream Maker.
okay.
And this book for me was basically, and oddly enough, the book doesn't even reference autism. The book was a catharsis for me. I wanted to really talk about some of the issues the concerns that I had for Joshua. And when we started talking about him having friends, and that was really a big piece of it. So I want to be able to convey to his friends some of the challenges you see. If Josh was out playing with you and he decides to just take off in the middle of the game, this kind of explains maybe he's having some sensory processing issues. Maybe he's feeling overwhelmed and just kind of needs to remove himself from that situation at that time. So I thought that if I could convey that in a children's book format, then the children would have a better understanding of it.
Okay. What is the next one?
The second book is
The
The
adventure.
Adventures of Suther Joshua from Planet Yet I Can.
All right. Very.
And that's
That
actually,
looks
and
very
I
fun.
have to say that because, people mispronounce it, and that's fine. It's actually a cute play on words. Um, and I'll give that away. It's actually, he's saying Super Joshua from Planet Yes I Can.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of a play on words, but this book actually kind of looks at a phenomenon called echolalic speech. A lot of times, what happens is our children aren't able to kind of glean the information that they need from a conversation to make an appropriate response. So, what you may hear is them actually repeating back to you what you've said, or going to some rote phrases that they hear, which is called scripting. They may, for my son, he would kind of talk in characters, some of the characters that he's seen in the movie, and give back some of the dialogue. But that was his way of trying to communicate back, because as we're talking, your mind is already pulling out cues from what I'm saying and is forming a response. He couldn't do that. And the only response he could make was what was familiar to him, which was the dialogue from the movies. So sometimes you will hear children say that. I remember when he was younger, if people said, "Hi, Joshua," he'd say, "Hi, Joshua." He didn't understand I need to respond with
Respond to
that
that.
person's name. So that was a way to explain that. And it also talked a little bit about perseveration. When I talk about children who may have very narrow fields of interest, and you may have a child who may want to have a car, but only turn it upside down and roll the wheels and really focus on the wheels and not want to do anything else with the car. That's perseverating. So for me, in the book, it really talks a little bit about Joshua teaching himself how to ride a bike, but it looks at the echolalic speech and the perseveration, which was something that he was just really focused on, and the other children didn't understand it.
I see.
Okay,
The
so
next
the
book,
the third book in the series was,
Joshua,
okay, let
that's
me see
so
that.
slimming.
Joshua, that's so slimming. And another play on words. Sometimes in the the autism community, you hear a phrase called stimming. And that's usually referring to auto stimulation. You may see children wringing their hands, rocking back and forth, or doing really repetitive physical
Tasks.
motions or verbal motions, maybe clearing their throat or making sounds. Um, you know, in the past, I always said that was a way for children to self regulate input that was coming in. But as a therapist, I'm learning more and more that that is true for some children. Some children, it may be a way of gaining attention. We found that, if a child screams and everybody comes running, that's attention. So if a child's wringing their hands and all of a sudden everyone's saying, okay, stop that, that's not normal, that may be a way of getting attention. So we have to really look at the behavior itself and what purpose is serving for each individual child. So I wanted to say that as a therapist because, as I said, I've heard it from other people that it's a way of them being able to kind of center themselves and focus all of the sensory information that they're getting. But that's only true for some people. So I definitely wanted to make that distinction at this time. The fourth book, which is the most closest to my heart at this point, is
I am over
Joshua,
here.
I'm Over Here.
Huh.
And the reason why this book is so important to me, it was actually written in conjunction with my older son. And at the time, he was about 10 years old, and Joshua was about 2. And, he had wanted so much to be this big brother. And all of a sudden, he's faced with this toddler who would not pay attention to him, would not engage him. And oftentimes, as parents, I think we get so focused on the child with the diagnosis, because there's so much going on. You may be seeking out specialists, you may be trying to find the right educational supports. Um, so a lot of time is devoted to that child. And we seem to, sometimes I think not neglectfully so, we tend to forget what the siblings are going through. They're experiencing a lot of the same emotions that we're experiencing. They're going through that grief process. They're going through the confusion, the anxiety, the fear. And this, for me, was a way to give voice to the siblings and really talk about Robert's experience as being a big brother and not having this little brother that he wanted to have this relationship with, but couldn't because of the autism. So it was really kind of cute. It talks about Robert, trying to engage Joshua, and he's doing all these things, and he's like, "Look, Josh, I'm over here," and Josh was looking over his head. He's, not making eye contact. So while the book really looks at the difficulty that our children have with making and sustaining eye contact, it really was giving a voice to our siblings to say that, we do get it as parents. We understand that you're going through a lot of the same issues that we are, and we see you and we're here for you. So that's why that was really
Okay.
important for me.
Okay. So Tell our
And
audience where can they find these books? Where can they buy them?
you can buy my books. I have a website. It's www dot capital N capital S capital V no small victories online.com, and I have a store on my site. And for our listeners, if you put in, I'm going to go in today and put in a coupon code that will give you 20% off your purchase. So if you put in NSV20, which I will be putting online today, you will get 20% off your purchase. I'm really hoping that this will help support, educating our families, our extended families, our friends. Autism can be very isolating for the family. So for me, it's important that we have a support system and the people around us to help us through this. It can be very difficult.
Very interesting. So we just take a quick look at your website here. It has all kinds of interesting information. How to purchase the merchandise, the NSV site store. That's where they can buy
Yes.
all these books.
Yes.
Let's take a look on there and see what we have. So here it is. There is Jacqueline, and those are the books. So
Yes.
I would like to tell our audience, if you go to that website, nsvonline.com, you can find all the books. Now, are they available on Kindle?
I haven't been loaded onto Kindle yet. That's a project that we're working on. And I'm actually hoping to get them, start getting them out to school systems. So um, I just want to get them in as many hands as possible so that we can help start supporting our families. You can see them on Amazon. However, I believe the cost is a little less on my website. I want to make them more affordable. So, as I said, if you use the coupon code, which I'll be putting up later today, NSV20, you'll be getting 20% off your purchase.
Excellent. Okay, so we got that squared away. Ladies and gentlemen, you know where to find the book, and now if for you to become a certified counselor,
Mhm.
you have to graduate with your graduate degree, and then after that you
Yes.
can practice.
Yes. Well, I can practice once I finish my field hours and sit for my boards. Then I will be a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. So please wish me luck. It's not going
Oh,
to be an easy thing, but this is my passion in helping families and helping children develop. So I'll take the exams as many times as I have to till I can get certified.
I
So
think
hopefully once.
you have such an interest in the subject matter, and you have personal experience. We don't think that you'll have any trouble passing all that exams, and we wish you all the best, of course. You
Thank
know,
you.
one more thing that I was thinking as I was going through and listening to your rendition of autism, I think, for example, you and I also must have some autism because we are doing things that are on one extreme. You have interest in appearing on shows, and I have interest in doing shows. I think this is also autism. Nobody else is doing this.
Oh, I would proudly claim that if that's part of my makeup, I would proudly be among those counted on the diagnosis.
Okay, good. So therefore, what you are saying is, for anybody who has accomplished anything in their life, is a certain amount of autism is actually a good thing.
Um, I don't want to make that broad a statement. I would just say that I don't think it doesn't have to be a hindrance. Again, I think, just as parents, we're always looking to see where our children shine and supporting that. I think it's doubly important that we do so with our children on the spectrum because they are so focused and can be so driven and are usually not easily distracted away from their passions. I say for whatever parent out there, if you see something that your child is excelling in, make a way for that to become something, a part of their life. I'm hoping that Joshua will go on to help illustrate books for me in the future, or, become an advocate in his own right, or maybe a dance teacher. I don't know. But whatever his passion is, I'm going to support that and hope that that will become something that will help make his life much more independent and happy.
Is he a good dancer?
Yes, yes, he is. He's much better, and he hates when I dance. So,
Oh,
um,
that's good
yeah,
news.
he's like kind of does the teenage face, like, Mom, don't do that.
Moms don't do it. No, of
But
course
yeah,
not.
he's good.
So, do you have any video of Josh dancing?
I don't on this computer, unfortunately, but I will be loading some up on my website. So,
So next time.
you will be seeing him out. Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this in a hypothetical situation. Suppose he is around next room, and if you ask him to come and say hello to the audience, okay, say for example, just
Yes.
how would that pan out?
I think he would love it. He is someone who, because he loves to
Performance?
perform, he does fight. So if you could hold that thought, I'll get him for you.
All right, let's get him. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live. While we are waiting for him, let's play some music. All right, so I would imagine he is not interested in coming.
No, he's actually coming. He was upstairs, just kind of lounging. So I'm
Oh,
like, I need you really quickly. So he's actually coming.
oh, he's actually coming. Okay, good.
Yes.
All
And
right.
this is my son, Joshua.
Hello, Joshua.
Hi.
How are you? Yeah, he's
Good,
a
good.
very handsome young man.
Thank you. Look at the
So
camera.
he's looking at the camera, correct? Yeah,
There
that's
you go.
fine.
Yes.
See, Joshua, you are now actually you are being looked at by people all over the world.
Really?
From India, Morocco, Japan, Canada, Brazil, and every other place. So say hello to our audience.
Hello.
Good. So yeah. So how is everything going? I understand that you are a great dancer, and your mother was telling me that you learned dancing yourself, especially the tap dancing and all the other dances.
Wait, you heard about me and my
Uh,
dancing?
yeah, I heard about everything. I heard everything. Your life is an open book now. Everything everybody knows about you. Now your
Oh,
mother is responsible for it, by the way. So what's your plan for today?
well, oh, I'm not really sure, but there was this plan on Sunday 19th.
19th?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Well, there was my mom's autism fair at MLK, and she wants me and my crew named the Gold Squad to perform there.
Yes,
Oh,
they're performing at an upcoming
so
autism event.
so what is the performance is all about? Is it just dancing or dancing with music? What do you do exactly?
Well, we actually dance in front of the whole crowd.
Okay, good. And what kind of music?
Well, some type of hip hop music and modern music.
Very good, very good. You know what? I got an idea for you.
Why?
Do you like Bollywood music?
Huh?
Bollywood
Wait,
is
Bollywood?
Indian.
You never heard of it? Okay, I'm going to play.
Indian?
I'm going to play it for you. Just listen to this.
Wow.
Well, that's Indian. Now, perhaps you might like this one. Let's try this.
Okay.
What? You like that,
That's your rap music.
huh? He can dance to that.
All right, let's dance.
Okay.
Dance?
You can't. You have to come
Okay, you
come
have to
this
come
way.
back over here so you can stay in front of the camera.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. Yay.
Excellent. You know, Jacqueline, we should have started this show like this instead of, we are almost only 2 minutes left. So, what I would
Exactly.
like to do next time, Josh, you should come on my show and let's put a show together next week during the awareness month in April. And I think you got some great talent. So this,
Really?
we were talking about some boring subject. I think next time you should come on. Well, it's not a boring subject, but it's a very interesting subject. But I think we should come on the show and hey, entertain us. This is great. This is
I
absolutely
think it would
great.
be awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to our featured guest, Jacqueline Williams-Hines, and we had the pleasure of having Joshua also on the show towards the end. We actually missed him on the early part, but since he is such a great dancer, we are going to look at some of the dances he did next time. We are going to put him on the show, and he's also going to come and talk to us, and we are going to interview him, okay, as part of our global radio program. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. And Jacqueline and Josh, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Most welcome, and please stay on the line for one more second.
I will.